Hello, hello professionals. My name is Rico Aladdin and I'm the founder of Professional Lunch. My guest today is a professional who has 40 years of experience, almost 40 years of experience of working at NDSU, and he is an author. Please tell the Professional Lunch audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, I'll start with coming here. I came here in 1971 to do my graduate work here. And that is, if you look at 1970, that's 53 years ago.
Wow.
53 years ago. And 1976, I started working here. And my first, at that time, I was doing my working part-time at the counseling center, I wanted to be a counselor, and that's what I was doing, and got this full-time position at the Graver Hotel downtown. Downtown Graver Hotel. The Graver Hotel building is still there, and that NDSU got that as a gift, and so we housed students there. I was a manager of that hotel for a year, and then brought to campus and moved up in the ladder and eventually become the housing director or the residence life director. And then I became the assistant dean to associate dean and the dean of students, and then retired here as the vice president for student affairs. And after retirement, I was also brought here as the interim athletic director, AD, and I served almost a year in that position as well. So that is kind of my professional career there. In between that period, about 90 to 94, I went to Mankato State University and worked there also. So there's those are the two institutions. These are the two institutions that I worked in the last 40 years of my professional career. Yeah.
Wonderful. Oh my goodness, you have such a long career, and in those careers you have occupied positions that are really significant as directors and vice president. So and we'll talk about the book, because the book is, oh my goodness, the book, we have to talk about the book. But first, tell me a little bit about your time here at NDSU for a decade. What were some of the highs, what were some of the lows in about your time here?
I think that'd be a short answer, because my highs, everything has to do with the students. And my goal was to convince the campus that when you look at North Dakota State University or any other land-grant universities or flagship institutions, they're large. I think we call them mid-size, but at the same time it's large. And we are one of the largest cities or towns in North Dakota. If I remember right, I think when we based on the population, student population as well as the faculty and staff, everybody combined together, we are the, seventh largest or fifth largest, I can't remember now. I used to talk about that in this, in North Dakota. And my goal was to teach and educate the campus community that we are here for one purpose, and to serve the students. The students have to be the basis, or student has to be the focus of everything that we do in the institution. And so a lot of times what happens is we all get into this resource battle, and student affairs to business affairs to academic affairs, and we will miss the focus as to why we are here. We're here. So I go around and tell people that we are here to serve the students. We are here to serve. Everything is based on the fact that we are here. If there are no students, there's no university here. And so that was the basis. I wanted to model that. How did I model that? I think one of the things, I think in the early days or early years in my life, I could call every student by name. And I started practicing that, getting to know the students, and calling them by name, attending their events, whether that is in the morning, early morning, or whether late at night. And if they may not have been part of my job, but at the same time, I was there to interact with them in their presence and serving them, other than the administrative things that I was responsible for. I also practiced that every Friday, I went to every department that I was in charge of, I was responsible for. And there was a time period I had about 20-some departments that I was overseeing.
Wow.
So I couldn't do that on a Friday.
Yeah.
So I will take about 4 departments, and I will go every desk and every office and talk to the staff members, and because they were part of my team. And it is valuable to them. So rather than me sitting in the Old Main or wherever my office was, there was a time my office was here as the Dean of Students. And again, modeling the importance of the students and for the campus community. And I hope I practice that. And they become part of my life. And my wife and I used to say that we adopted thousands of students. And I get Father's Day cards, and still to this day, I get cards from people.
Wow, yeah. This is amazing. And you mentioned something that I want to follow up on. Student affairs and academic affairs, and you try to shift the focus on the students. Yeah. So what has been somewhat of sort of reluctance, if you will, when it comes to the different departments of student affairs?
Reluctance, is it?
Yeah, reluctance.
Reluctance.
So like different part of the university, like academic affairs and different affairs on campus, and trying to get them to focus on the student to make the.
Yeah, I think part of the reason is the way it is structured.
Okay.
The way it is structured, people think student affairs means you have to take care of the students, and that is true. But at the same time, it was a challenge for me to teach everybody, saying that we all have the responsibility. We all have the responsibility because if we don't serve the students, and that's the only reason that we have a university. And so, come out of the turf, we are very big in terms of protecting our own turf because it has to do with the money. And so they don't want to share certain things. And being collaborative, and we have to see the focus as to the vision and mission of the university, and all the divisions that we may have, we have to tie that into one, and where the university is going. And we need to stand behind that and be collaborative about that.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, we'll focus on the book a little bit more today, simply because I love the 80-20 principle that you have in there that work with both personal life and also professional life. So, reading the part about the calling that talks about a little bit about your life, there is a great focus, emphasis on your faith. Tell me a little bit about your faith.
Okay. Well, India is a country. I grew up in India. I came from India. India is a country where 85% of the people are Hindus, approximately 10% are Islam, and less than 3% are Christians. I grew up in a state called Kerala, and where St. Thomas, one of the disciples of Christ, went to India after Christ left here, and after he was crucified and was resurrected, and the disciples went all over the world, and St. Thomas went to Kerala, India. So the Christianity began in India 2,000 years ago. My mother's side of the Christianity is the St. Thomas Christians. Okay, so we can even trace her Christian ancestry because it goes all the way back to St. Thomas there. My father's side, it is a 3-generation Christian. My great-grandfather was a Hindu who was a Brahmin. That means there are 4 distinct castes, and the caste system is banned there, but at the same time, it was the highest caste there. So being a Brahmin and converting into Christianity, that's a no-no. That's a no-no. You don't do that. You don't do that. But he was converted into Christianity. He was in another state, and by fear and persecution and things like that, I think he had to leave the state and get to Kerala. That's where more Christians were there, and we are the grandchildren. This was my great grandfather, that side. My father was a pastor of a church, and he was also served as a pastor over 40-some years. My mother, I call her the Mother Teresa because she worked very well with the people around. Because when we live in a community like that type of culture, the Hindus and Islam, we are all together And we celebrated Christmas and Easter and everything, and they were all in our house. It was simply a celebration for them. And we did the same thing. Their celebrations, whether that is a Hindu celebration or an Islamic celebration, we were at their home. And so it was, we had a wonderful relationship that we maintained there. My faith, I think, even though I was brought up as a very, very, very strong Christian, I did everything I want to believe that expectations of my parents. Did I bring God into my heart? That didn't happen until 1973, until I came to United States. Okay, I was out there. If people ask me, "Are you a Christian?" I say, "Yes, I'm a Christian." Of course, because look at what I have. Rich history. And I was living in the coattails of all that. But that all changed, and I came here, and then I went to a conference here in Urbana, that's in Illinois. Urbana Conference, 1973. That's where I accepted Christ.
Okay.
Yeah. So principles and values, but all those things that I learned from my parents and my childhood days, that all came back. The memorization that I had to do, all those things, my mother was very insistent on that. I didn't see much value to that when I was growing up, but because Mom asked me to do it, so I did it. But now I remember some of those verses, and I work very hard. I still say that you cannot just simply say the faith you're strong and then everything is fine. No. I'm still on the job training. I'm still on the job training.
Yeah.
It's a process. It's a journey. It's a journey.
Yeah.
And I try to be a better person and try to do the right thing for the right reason. All those type of things. And I'm still on apprenticeship.
You're still learning. Wow. So that's a perfect transition to the book, because that's... how did you come about writing the book in the first place? Because I read an interaction that you had with either a student or a staff that says, if you don't write the book, I'll write it in the book.
Correct. Well, it is, while I was here at NDSU, you know that there are a lot of times you have to go and speak.
Yes.
Some of them are you get notification early, and so you prepare those speeches. And when I prepare those speeches, I have it in the word process, and then at least you have a template to go by, and then at least I know what I need to communicate, some bullet points. There were also impromptu speeches you made.
Yeah.
So there were workshops and speeches that I made. My former staff and lots of former students. And they heard some of the things I talked about, and a lot of things were my own things and my own personal philosophy. And so they started encouraging me when I was getting closer to retirement. And they started encouraging me, Prakash, are you going to put this in writing? And I said, no, I don't think so. I think so, because I'm not a writer. Yeah. I'm not a writer. And why do you ask? And they said, well, we are using it, and it's so meaningful to us. Yeah. And I said, well, that's great. If that's meaningful to you, use it. That's all you need. Then I started using some of those materials for even when I interview people, and people come from all over the nation, come here for interviews, and I will test the water with some of my philosophy on them, and that's one of the things I think you want to talk about. The 80-20 principle is one of the things I tested the water with people, and so they go back, even when they didn't get the job, they go back, they're leaving with a very positive attitude about the institution and our interaction, and they write back to me and say, I want to learn more from you, and we want to have that conversation continues. And so they write back to me. There was I think the story that you mentioned about was a fellow who came here for interview, and he was from Virginia, University of Virginia, and he really liked that principle, and he said, Prakash, if you don't write the book, and he started writing to me often saying, please write a book about this, and because it's so valuable to him. Yeah. And then he kind of jokingly threatened me and saying that if you don't write the book, I'm going to write a book.
That's kind of cool. So you mentioned your personal philosophy. Tell me a little bit about your personal philosophy.
Well, there were that part. Unfortunately, there are people always ask me, Prakash, are you going to write another book. Well, there are certain things that you missed out, even though that was my personal philosophy. I did not put that in the book. Okay. Now I regret that, and so I'm going to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about it.
Yes.
And one of the things I talked about, there are 3 principles that I want people to know. One is we all need to know what we are doing. That's the number 1 principle, know what you do. Know what you're doing. That's where the skills and the knowledge and the experience, and that's how you get the job. Yeah. When you go for interview, one of the things, I think 90% of the questions that you're going to be asked is about from that category, as to your knowledge, your experience, and that's what they're looking for. So be competent in your knowledge. Be competent in your knowledge. I think that's the number 1 principle is know what you're doing. Number 2 is believe in what you're doing. So let's say that you went through that, you got the job, and then you're there. So how you need to practice this? There are 2 ways you can practice it. One, because just the same way as I was talking about my faith, because my parents wanted me to do this, I did this, and that is less meaning to me because I did it because just to please them.
Yep.
Same way that in workplace, you can do what you know in your job thing because your supervisor wants you to do, or that's what you expected of you to do, and you do your things well, and at the same time you're not serving the people, and you're not connecting with them there. And if you believe in what you're doing, and let's say a student asks you, and they disagreed with you, then they say, why? Why do I have to do this? Or can you explain to me? And if you don't know the answer to that, and you are still enforcing the rule, but you don't know why you're enforcing it, what is the rationale behind that policy? That means you did not believe in what you're doing. So one of the things that I used to tell staff members, take a look at all the policies that you have, and find out as the rationale as to why those policies exist. And maybe you can eliminate a lot of those policies because we have been doing this for 50 years or 40 years, and you've been doing this, and now, that was in the old times, maybe you needed those policies. Or now you cannot even explain. Eliminate them. Because I used to tell that we have too many policies sometimes, and that is the hoops, I call, the students go through. Because you run them through the hoops. And so I tell them, believe in what you're doing. And I can go to any place. It doesn't have to be university. I can go to McDonald's. I can go to Target. It doesn't matter. When I working with a staff member there, and I can see in their face as if they believe in what they're doing, they'll serve you better. They'll serve you better because they are enjoying. And the third component is, so the number 1, number 2 is believe in what you're doing. And so somebody is transitioning from knowing what you're doing to believing in what you're doing, and you can see in their face they're already smiling. They're all smiling because they're excited to. And third is enjoy what you're doing. Have fun in your workplace. Have fun in your workplace, because there was a time period in my life I never thought I was going to work because it was I was having so much fun. I was having so much fun. I think going through that, I think we all can know that. That doesn't mean that we would have struggles. We would have challenges there. Continue to ask the why, and then find the supervisor. And that's where maybe, hopefully, we can talk about the type of leadership that you need to provide. And one of the things that I've tried very hard to do that, administer the servant leadership model at this institution. And I want to say that I truly practice that only because my father was a servant leader. And I also learned that from him. And anyway, we can talk about it. That's my personal philosophy. Know what you're doing. Believe in what you're doing. And enjoy. And have fun in what you're doing.
Wonderful. I think I'm going to keep this for myself. Oh my goodness, what a good time to take a short break here. When we come back, we're going to continue talking about the book. There is a principle, 80-20 principle in the book that I really want to touch on. And then now that you mentioned servant leadership, we're going to talk about that also. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back. We are back. We are at the Buzz and Information Network studio at NDSU today. My guest is Prakash Matthew.
Yes.
Yes, I got it. I got it this time. And he's the author of We Are Called to Do the Right Thing. Jeff, if you can put that up for us. So we are talking about the book, and we jump into it without showing a copy of it. If you don't have this book, you have to go get it, because the 80-20 principle is a good principle to have. Prakash, please tell us about that.
Okay. 80-20 principle. There are you may be able to find other books where they talk about 80-20 principle. I want to believe that this 80-20 principle that I'm talking in this book is so different from what you may read in other books.
Okay.
What happens when your personal values come in conflict with the organizational values, or I call the institutional values?
Yeah.
You're working in an organization, whatever work that you're doing, whether that is university related, doesn't matter, higher education related, or in the business world, or any job that you're doing. What happens when you enter into that position? And what happens when your personal values come in conflict with their values? If my 80-20 principle talks about it is, if that void, and if there is a conflict there, and you're sacrificing your principles more than 20% of the time, consistently, we all will have conflicts. We're never going to get a 100% match. But if that conflict is more than 20% consistently, you're not in the right place. It is so I used to tell staff that, because it is not something. I challenge staff to take a look at that. I may lose some staff members, but at the same time, I would rather have them be happy there than staying there in conflict with their own values about that. So I may have lost few people that way, but at the same time, I will help them find the right niche for them. So one of the things I talked about, several aspects of the 80-20 principle. One is start with the job search. So when you go for the job search, how do you know, how can you avoid that in the front end? How can you? So one of the things I talk about in the book is do all the research you can do about that place that you're going to be working for, the institution, the organization, wherever that might be, and their philosophy, their mission statement, the vision statement. I tell you what, you're not going to read a bad mission or vision statement. So if you're looking for something exciting, you're going to find a lot of wonderful things. But the question is, also do the research to find out as to are they practicing those things. And even when the students, staff members who came from all over the country to interview with me, and I will ask them, why do you want this job? And why do you want to work at NDSU? They will tell me exciting stories and what they heard, or what exciting things that they read. And they will tell me that you consider students this is an institution where student focus, land grant, and research institution here. And particularly the part about the student focus is the part attracted me to apply for this position. And I'm so excited, I can't wait to have this position. And they will tell me all the things that I want to hear. Then I will pause and ask them a question. How do you know that we are practicing this?
Wow.
Okay.
That's the question.
How do you know that? So one of the things that I used to do was to have a time slot, about an hour gap in the interview schedule. And I will send them to the student union right here, or to campus. I tell them to walk around the campus, find 8 to 12 students, randomly pick them, and ask them the question. And I'm here for an interview. I read that this is an institution. You think that this is the student-focused university, and this institution considers students are number one priority. Is it true? What does that mean to you? And give me some examples. And then you come back and report back to me. And because if we are not practicing that, we are not doing our job. So you want a job here, and then we are saying this is who we are. And then what if you find out? You come back and tell me you talked to 9 students out of 10, and they said, I don't even know what you're talking about. And so the real litmus test comes from the students.
Yeah.
And I gave them time to do that. So very similar to that, I will say that if you're going for an interview, do enough research. Find out some people who work at that institution, at the place, and how they're treated. What is the culture of that place? And do they practice what they preach? And all the tough questions ask them that before you go for the interview. So what happens is, if it is the first job that you're going to, you graduated and you're looking for a job and you heard great things about this place and you applied, but at the same time you didn't do enough research, or for whatever reason you thought, oh, I need this job. And because this is your first job and the job's so bad, you need the job so bad, and you said yes. Or whatever reason that you got the job and you found out they're not practicing it.
Yeah.
Okay. Then what do you do? So that's the phase two. That's phase two. Phase one is you do the research, and so you can ask the right questions to them. And if I were to come and join this is what is exciting about this institution. This is what I read. Can you tell me the same way as they are asking questions? And a lot of people are afraid to ask that because they think you won't get the job. Because, so you do that. And once you're there, then if they're not practicing it, you need to talk to your supervisor. There are some places where they don't really appreciate that either, because they say, no, this is what we do here. You knew what you're getting into, and all kinds of answers to it. Well, try to have a conversation with a dialogue, not an adversarial and see whether you can be a change agent. And anytime you make a suggestion, also come with alternatives. Just make sure that rather than just simply say, I don't like it, and this is what is impacting me, and you should also provide some suggestions. If the supervisor or the institution or the organization is not willing to do that, you need to make some decisions. How, if you are compromising consistently those values, and if that is happening, you may need to find another place to work. So this is an area, Raiko, I get more feedback than any other. Yeah. And even search firms have contacted me because they read about this and they said, well, if we can help the candidates to find the right niche. So how do you know you are the right fit for that organization? That's what it's all about. How do you know you're the right fit for the organization? I would want to believe that even the employers want the right fit too. And so you can do enough research ahead of time, or it so happened that they are not, you got the job, and for whatever reason they are not practicing what they proclaim that they are, who they are, and you can do something about it in terms of being a change agent to do that. If that's not feasible for the administration, then you need to find a different
avenue.
Yeah.
Wow, as I am listening to this, I want the professional lunch audience, the college students, the professionals who are doing their careers right now to understand this. So explain to them, or at least summarize for them, how they can apply that principle and how they can go about that principle, that 80-20 principle. Like, simplify it for them. Yeah.
Well, there are, earlier we talked about my faith, and there are certain principles that we need to compromise. Okay, all the principles that you need to put the priority, that I call them the core values. There are some core values that I have. I think that is a process that you go through to identify the core values. So that's the number one exercise we all need to do, to identify your values, and then you go through it and put the core values, and they're saying that these are the values that, and I'm going to live by. Okay, live by. And not only you talking about, I think you need to write it down, and then you practice them. And if you're not practicing it, then there's no meaning to that. You can just tell everybody, oh, these are my core values, and sound good, just like the institution is saying, this is who we are, and you're no different than what they're saying. So once you do that, then you need to think about, are there things that you can make compromises? And I want to believe that there lot of things that we can compromise. We can come a win-win-win situation without completely compromising it. You are trying to make a compromise in terms of saying that how can we reach a win-win situation. I think that is possible. But at certain values, there is no compromise. Being truthful, okay? And I talked about a story in this book about lying and how I learned never to lie again in my life. And so every time I know I make a decision, be truthful about it. And so let's say that I work here and my president called me and asked me to go and take a shortcut in certain things and make a decision about something. I had a relationship with every president that I worked for, and they knew who I was. And they knew I will not make a compromise on those things. And my answer is, Mr. President, I cannot do that. Or I will not do that. And also the institution should not do that. And teach them about that. Guess what? Nobody ever asked me to compromise that. Because they know that there are certain things they'll negotiate with me. They will not negotiate with me those principles and values which happen to be my core values. I hope it is their core values too. Because our integrity is based on all that.
Yeah.
And what you practice. Wow. Did I answer that?
Yes. So developing your core value, that will help you with the 80-20
Exactly.
Wonderful.
Then you know which one you can sacrifice or you can compromise. Or compromise.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So, and I also will talk about. I want to talk about a little bit about servant leadership, and I don't want you to cover the whole book because I want the professional lunch audience to go and read the book too. So you talk about servant leadership, and can you kind of talk about that a little bit for the professional lunch audience, and I will follow up with your question.
Okay, I will give a little background about it because, in this country, I think we will. This was not a very popular leadership model for, say, 30 years ago. Yeah. Because people thought servant leadership model is a touchy-feely deal, and making people feel good and all those kind of things. A lot of credibility came into play. I think I will just briefly start about saying that my father was a servant leader. When I was a young lad, I knew the term servant leadership because through my father. Just like any other book, you may read certain leadership principles from different places, but servant leadership model came from the Bible.
Oh,
okay. The Bible. And Jesus was the author of the servant leadership model. So my father's work with Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, when he was working, and it is like I told you that the country of different religions and cultures, all those there, and they had, during the independence movement time, they had prayer meetings. My father was the leader to do the prayer when it was Christians' turn to do the prayer, and my father led the prayer meeting. Gandhi was well versed in that. He understood that because when he was in South Africa, he was an attorney first. He got his law degree in England. Then he went to South Africa, got his first job. And during that time period, and his law firm, the people who were responsible for the attorneys, and they were very, very strong Christians. And so they knew Gandhi was Hindu. Nevertheless, they invited him to all this prayer meetings and all kinds of things, and they gave him a Bible. Gandhi started reading the Bible. Make the story short, he came back to India, and that's the time that he worked with my father. My father's influence on Gandhi about servant leadership, because Gandhi could relate then with what he learned in the Bible about this model. Okay, because Jesus was the first person, and there was, I think, one story in the Bible talked about is. In those days, when you go into a master's home for dinner, and before he entered, and in the Middle East, that's where they grew up, in the Middle East, and the sandals, and they walked with the sandals, and the dusty road, and the animals were used for transportation. So you're dusty and smelly, and you're dirty and smelly, and so there was servants were assigned to wash your feet before you enter the home. Okay, Jesus one day decided, I'm going to wash your feet. Okay. He turned around and his own disciples, he decided to do that. And they were surprised. And they said, particularly Peter said, "What are you doing, Master? You don't do this." And so that's where he first time ever taught the principles of servant leadership.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a quote that I like to repeat on the show. As leaders, as professionals, we are called to serve in our in our work, in our day-to-day activities. So when it comes to servant leadership, there's some might think that sometimes as a servant leader, you might be taken advantage of. What do you say to that? Someone might take advantage of you if you're a servant leader because you want to help them, you want to serve them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I will say to them, I think that at the beginning I mentioned about people thought it was a touchy-feely people's deal. And so there is all the components of good management leadership are embedded in the servant leadership model. The only thing that is different is you're saying the word boss is hardly ever used in servant leadership. I'm serving with you. I'm serving with you. I'm here to serve with you. But that doesn't take the accountability away from you.
Okay.
Okay. That wouldn't take the purpose away from you. There is a purpose there. There's accountability there. There's a stewardship there. All the wonderful components of the good leadership model is embedded into this one.
Wonderful.
You are not excused.
I like that. I like that part.
Yeah, that is not taken away from at all. What is different is you don't have to be always called, "Oh, here the boss is coming, so I have to bow down." No. And so my boss is going to tell me what. No. That's part of the reason why they don't even use the term bow. Humility, humility, humility is the number one principle of a servant leadership. And being humble about it. Humble, that doesn't make you a second-class citizen. You're serving others. And when I was here, I taught people to say that we are here to serve students. And I will simply, I'm not saying this to, we went through several floods here. There were times that I get called middle of the night to come here, and because there's an emergency, whatever it is, I don't have to come here. And they will call me, and then I will have to call other people to come and take care of things. There were times that I will say, I'm going to go and see what is going on.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many times I came here. Well, there was one time I came here, and the downstairs, the dining services area is all flooded. And so rather than just leaving there, and then he's getting all the help. And I said, where is the vacuum? And let's suck this up. And I said, do you have a water board for me? So it is, I can come there and show up as a vice president. Oh, no, he wouldn't do that job. No, that is not demeaning yourself. You're just taking care of a situation and working side by side with a custodial staff member who was here, he left the family and came there at night, and I wanted to be there for the support. I'm just using it as example not to impress anybody. Just giving an example to say that there is not a job that you wouldn't do.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. Thank you for clarifying that a little bit. So we're going to take another short break here. When we come back, we'll talk to Dr. Prakash about the challenges that he faced over the 40 years that he has spent in his professional career. We'll be right back. If you have not followed Professional Lunch on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok, find us and support us that way too. We appreciate that. Now, this is the part that I tell you. It's up to you to make today a great day. Have a great day. We are back. We are at the Basin Information Network studio at NDSU. My guest is the author of We Are Called to Do the Right Thing. Prakash Mathew, welcome back, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Now, the third part of the conversation, every time I find myself asking the guests about the challenges that they face in their professional career. Almost 40 years in higher ed. Please tell me about what of the biggest challenge that you've had in your career.
I will phrase it as also maybe somewhat general about that one. I think early days in my time, I think if you are a young professional who are listening to this, I want you to understand this one. Even though you're hired for a position with your competence, knowledge, and maybe some experience, maybe not all the experience that you may not know everything.
Yeah.
And so be hungry to learn, be hungry to learn. So one of the mistakes I think people do is when you move into a certain position, you take an attitude of saying that I know it all versus saying that I need to learn about this. What if you're put in a position, you're supervising an area that you know very little about? Okay, I'll use an example of that. And I moved up into the vice presidency area, even though I had worked with the people in the enrollment management area. And I was not an expert in that area. So the person who was here in charge of that, she became my associate vice president. I had this very candid conversation with her because she's part of I'm supervisor. But at the same time I said, I'm here to learn.
Yeah.
You need to teach me here. Teach me about this Kate. Her name is Kate, Dr. Kate Haugen. And I said, please teach me about this. And you have wealth of knowledge. You are the authority in that because in order for me to be an advocate for you, to go into the president's cabinet and beyond, to advocate for you, your area, I need to be knowledgeable now. And you need to teach me about this. So one of the challenges is I think that young professionals or other professionals, even if you have 30 years of experience, sometimes you know it all attitude and keep that rather than saying, no, I'm here to learn. And so that's number one I can think of. There are other things I'm trying to see as to what other things that I can think of. Financial part is one of the things I can, in a practical way too. I think earlier I mentioned about people have a tendency to be turf protection. When they don't see the common goal or common direction, our path, and naturally here, through the help of all the staff members, the president of the university here will pay the way saying that this is our path. This is where we are going. So people may have different opinions about that. But nevertheless, once you're here, you need to be part of the team. How can I be a part of the team? Yeah. Provided I have an opportunity to give my feedback to them. Okay. So one of the things I think some of the supervisors again do is they don't provide an opportunity to become a dictatorship has to, and authoritarian leadership style. Yeah. And is that efficient? That may be the most efficient method, but at the same time, that is not the best way to move forward with it. So be part of that team and understand, ask the why questions, and how can I serve you? How can I be a part of that team? Do that. Again, I'm using in a third-party way as to how you can help the young professionals in that path. Yeah. Yeah. Specifically about finance aspect. We will agree on, I experienced this one, agree on all those kind of things, principles, and we all say we are on the same page, and then move forward. What happens is budget cut comes. Yeah. That's the time people dig their heels because they'll say, well, we are all ready for this to change to be made in this institution. But at the same time, the minute that is impacting you personally or your department is going to be impacted directly, then all of a sudden it's not okay. It's not okay. So one of the things that I always emphasize is when you want a budget reduction process or do the planning process way ahead of time, not when the crisis comes. Okay, yeah. You have a plan made in terms of if you have a good planning made, you put your priorities together saying that, and these are the things that we value the most. Without looking at the departments, bring the staff together, and I used to do a retreat about that. And so they need to itemize all the things that they see in the, for example, the Division of Student Affairs, and without looking at the department and saying that these are the priorities. Everybody will go and write on the whiteboard, and then you will prioritize, and then you know that someday you will have to make a cut. What are the, I call the drivers and enhancers. I made them into two categories. All the things that the staff members came up with. Without thinking, at that time, we are not saying, we are not even planning on having any budget cuts. We will write all these priorities, and then we'll say, write down the drivers of your department, or drivers of our Division of Student Affairs, or Business Affairs, whatever the area is, and make two columns. These are the drivers, these are the enhancers. And then you'll know who is responsible for those drivers, okay?
Yeah.
And so if we have to come up, make $1 million cut, naturally, we're not going to impact the drivers, because those, just like the core values we talked about, these are the drivers for us to serve the students, or for us to move forward. This institution to move forward. So we will not touch that. Then we will take a look at the enhancers. What are the enhancers? Maybe we can have certain events without a lot of refreshments. Okay. Okay. So start cut those areas, and so chances are those are the ones you will say, well, maybe I can live without it, you know. And this is not your idea. People came up with that, bottom up, and so that will be an enhancer in terms of working together. And otherwise, what happens is people get turf protection and say, you know, they don't want to share. They don't want to share because this is ours. Yeah. Anyway.
Wonderful. So, you know, we talk about the challenges. So what's the best experience that you've had over the 40 years that you were in higher ed?
Too many.
Share one or two with me.
I'm just trying to say I think when the students come forward with an idea, and then you implement that, make that happen. This didn't start with me. I think my predecessor, Dr. George Woman, and was the one who pioneered that one. But during that time, I was part of that team making this, and the students came with this idea because in this institution we serve the students well. Except there was a time period. This is 20-some years ago, where the students will have to go to financial aid office, then they go to the business office, then they will be sent to the housing office, or all the different places, when I'm talking about the freshman students, to get certain things done. And they get a run around all over the campus. And so the students said, why don't we consolidate some of this? A model came, and that was called the one-stop shop. One-stop shop. And one-stop shop model, we are one of the pioneers. There was only 5 institutions in the whole nation at that time that they were doing a one-stop shop model. So we said, okay, the students came up with that idea. They don't like this. We serve them. When you get to the business office, they serve them well. They go to the residence life office, they serve them well. All these places, they do get good service, but they had to run around all over the campus. Why can't we have it in one place where they will be served? And that's where the Bison Connection model came from. Okay, so that was instituted. We went to several places and saw what they were doing in the institution. And we went to 3 institutions and looked at their model, and so we were one of the early ones in North. We were the first ones in North Dakota as an institution, higher education institution, implemented that program, and then we changed the name to Bison Connection. I think they still call Bison. I'm pretty sure.
Campus Connection.
Campus Connection, whatever. Yeah. The one outside of here. I mean, the first floor, when you where they serve the students there, they can pay the fees there and all this downstairs. Anyway, that was called the Bison. Anyway, whatever that center is, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So, you know, we have the good experience. But I have a question that I have been, that was one of the first questions I wanted to ask you. What do you think is the biggest difference now between college students 25 to 30 years ago and student now, like up till you retire?
Yeah. I think we were seeing the changes that we were making every 10 years or so. The students, I think we need to adjust to, particularly people like myself, by the time you're ready to retire. My competency was not in IT area. Okay, I just survived. But at the same time, we needed to advance with the students, advance their needs and wants. We need to progress with them. They are much more competent about those type of things than we were. So adapting to those things, so we can say, "Oh, we have done this all the time. We don't do those type of things." No, whether that is online education, or whether that is how you communicate. I think more importantly, how you communicate with them. Ask the students, because if they don't read the email, why do we keep sending all these emails, pounding on them? Because they don't know.
Yeah.
So find out from the students as to what is the best way for us to communicate with you. Yeah. Okay. And so we need to make the changes based on where the students are. So that goes in terms of simple communications with them, as well as the classroom teaching too. Yeah. Yes.
Wonderful. Well, so, as you know, Professional Lunch is about creating a resource for young professionals to get to learn from others, people who have great careers. Like yourself, you also, you work in higher ed a long time and work with students. What we are doing here is really to give students a window into your careers, what you love about what you do, the challenges that you face along the way. And so we get to a point, I always ask professionals, what advice do you have for young professionals who are launching their careers right now?
You may not have all the goals all identified there. I would say one of the things I think having a sense of purpose beyond what kind of job you're going to have. A lot of times what happens, we can focus, I'm going to be an engineer when I graduate because I'm trained for this. Early enough in their career, or even before graduation, and that you can even start even high school, by the way, the high school graduates, having a sense of purpose, and what is my next step? What is my purpose? And not only in my life, and also if I were to select a major, this is what do I want to accomplish through that, and why am I taking this as my major? And so having the sense of purpose and meaning, that's number one. I'm a relationship person. I think any place you go, I am saying you accomplish many things that the relationship that you build with people.
Yes.
And whether that is the challenges that you asked me about, I should have talked about that. I think I solve more problems through relationship building. And when I knew that I'm in disagreement with somebody, and it is a wonderful challenge for me in a positive way. I'm going to capture this person, not because I know I have better answers, because I want to show that you and I can work together. And we need to put our differences together and say, how can we come to a win-win situation? And so I tell you, if I were to put one principle out there about all as my personal one, relationship building, relationship. Build a relationship. That's number two. Worksite environment. Worksite environment is so crucial because more people leave based on the culture of the place than maybe not getting enough. Maybe the salary may not be an issue. Maybe it is some of those things that we think might be the crucial one. No, may not be. It is again going back to the relation, how they're treated, how they feel comfortable, and are they if they are not treated well, And the culture, they not, remember those three principles I talked about? Enjoy what you're doing.
Yep.
If they're not taking time to celebrate success. And every morning I sat down with my administrative assistant, and when the 5 minutes, how was your evening? How was your day? And set the stage for that day. And then only I'll talk about, okay, let's look at the layers, what is scheduled for today. First to see how that person is doing. If that person had a bad night, maybe they're faced with some personal issues that I need to know.
Yeah, yeah.
And then start with that. I think so the environment in which you work.
Empathy.
And people caring for the people. Caring for the people. Having the person, because make the place not just a team, a family environment.
Wow.
Create a family environment. And I tell you what, I'm. People ask me, I came with a suitcase. I had no wealth. Look where I am. But people ask me, and then they think I have money. And I said, financially, I may not be, but I'm one of the wealthiest men around. I'm one of the wealthiest people around. You know why? There are people in my lives, the relationship that I build with people, and so I'm so rich. I'm so rich.
Yeah.
I'm so blessed.
Yeah. Relationship. Oh my goodness, that's a great note to really end our professional lunch today. Prakash, thank you so much for being on Professional Lunch today to share your knowledge, your passion with the Professional Lunch audience, and also a great resource. And this book, We Are Called to Do the Right Thing, and I get a copy. This is, I with that, and then it's really your story really inspiring. It's really an inspiring story. I appreciate that you're sharing it on a Professional Lunch audience. So thank you so much for being on the show today. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're wonderful too. Thank you.